Bite, sting, kill. You have to have ice in your veins to take out your victims by deadly poison or sheer strength. Everywhere on Earth, these lethal predators come to the fight with loaded weapons. And these cold-blooded killers show their victims no mercy as they battle to win the upper hand or seize their next meal. In the water, danger lurks at any depth. Cutting through the chill is the star of the summer blockbuster, the great white shark, the world's biggest flesh-eating fish. Its weapon of choice? Up to 300 serrated steak knives, which grow right from its gums. Each jaw carries several rows of deadly blades that are replaced all throughout its life. Every 8 months, new teeth advance from the back of the mouth like bullets in an ammo belt. One of the most wide-ranging predators, it hunts in all 4 oceans. In waters no higher than your waist, or over a half-mile deep. It eats dolphins, dead whales, even other great whites. But today, this great white is going after seals. For maximum surprise and power, the shark floors it. Not all strikes succeed, but the shark rarely misses twice. When a large prey fights back, the shark avoids injury by leaving it to bleed to death. Once it's safe, it moves in for the feast. A great white's teeth are designed for stabbing, not chewing. It has no molars, so it grips prey and thrashes its body, twisting off flesh and swallowing it whole. But here's why the great white is really called Jaws. A bite that may pack nearly 2 tons of force, 20 times the power of the human jaw. A sharp bite from a great white isn't the only cold shock you can get in the water. One of South America's apex predators lurks in murky tributaries of the Amazon River. And it uses what could be the strangest hunting tactic of all. This 6-foot-long animal produces what almost no other animal can conjure: a killing shock of electricity. known as the electric eel. It's a unique creature, more closely related to a catfish than an eel. First, it produces a small electric field, sensing distortions in it to navigate and to find other animals. These fish have no idea that their heartbeats and muscle action are drawing a killer closer. The electric eel probes likely hiding spots. And it's not going to rest until it's found a meal. Sensing prey, the eel flushes it out into the open and delivers its death blow. 500 volts, enough to stun an adult human. The electricity is turned off until hunger moves the eel to hunt again. Now satisfied, the eel disappears into the murk. But it's not just the murky rivers where prey needs to be careful. This hunter on Indonesian's reefs seems to be doing everything it can to draw attention to itself. The cuttlefish. An alien creature with 8 arms growing directly from its head. A large brain shaped like a donut. And 3 hearts that pump bright blue blood. This boneless, highly intelligent blob propels itself through the tropical oceans using jets of water and steering fins. Like their squid and octopus relatives, cuttlefish have the ability to instantly change color by altering the pigments in their skin. They're often called the chameleons of the sea. In a fraction of a second, they can disappear into the background or become a pulsating ball of flashing colors that almost seem to hypnotize their prey and enemies. One member of the tribe goes to great lengths to be as flashy as possible. The flamboyant cuttlefish is well named. This small but feisty beast prefers to walk along the bottom of the seabed rather than swim. If threatened, it stands its ground and unleashes a dazzling show of color. This may act as a warning to predators that it's poisonous if swallowed. It prowls the sandy seabed hunting for small prey, like shrimp. And it carries a concealed weapon. Hidden among the 8 stubby arms surrounding its mouth is a pair of hunting tentacles. When prey is in range, the tentacles are slowly aimed, then fired at blinding speed. The shrimp is captured and fed to the cuttlefish's parrot-like beak. And then it goes looking for more. The flamboyant cuttlefish is one of the deadliest little hunters on the reefs of Indonesia. And we do mean little. Speed, bite force, and electric jolts have nothing on the chilling power of venom. Of all the predators that use venom, the most notorious may be this one. The king cobra thrives in the forests and plains of southern Asia. His lethal venom and deadly fangs are renowned. All take caution when he patrols the forest, knowing that an accidental encounter could turn deadly. In one bite, it delivers more venom than almost any other snake. Enough to kill 20 men in less than an hour, or knock down the biggest creature in the jungle. This cold-blooded killer's favorite food is other snakes. But that doesn't make other creatures any less wary. They give him plenty of room to hunt. A tree offers the cobra an excellent vantage point to spot his next meal. And this rat snake tops the menu. The rat snake grows up to 7 feet long, but carries no venom. The cobra can spot prey from nearly 100 meters. And it's found lunch. The rat snake is looking for his own meal and detects its namesake prey. But it's unaware that it too is being stalked. The rat is about to be saved by an unlikely savior. The cobra can detect movement through vibrations in the ground, but its direction finder is its tongue. The cobra can strike from over 3 feet away. The rat snake's resistance is futile. The cobra injects deadly venom through its fangs, like toxins through a syringe. The venom floods the rat snake's nervous system. First comes dizziness, then sleepiness, finally paralysis. The cobra gulps its dinner whole. It can expand its jaws to accommodate a supersized meal, and its teeth face backward to move the meal along. Digestion is already starting. Venom is eating away at its victim. The rat snake may still be alive, but locked in a coma from which it will never awaken. Even as babies, these venomous reptiles can send a shiver through their potential prey. This little Aussie snake can kill anything its mother can, from the day it hatches. It's an inland taipan, the most venomous snake on Earth. Taipans stalk the Australian interior, searching for rodents, and armed with a weapon that could drop 100 men. A baby taipan's venom is no less toxic. This infant is on her very first hunt. Instinct tells her to target exactly what her mother would. One quick bite and the venom begins its deadly work, destroying tissue and causing convulsions. She has killed an adult-sized prey with ease. Making a meal of it is another story. Then, the tiny serpent picks up a faint odor in the grass. Something more her size. In looks and in killing power, baby inland taipans are a chip off the old block. Asia and Australia aren't the only places with venomous serpents hunting for their next meal. Cold, calculating eyes, slithering scales, flickering tongue. The African continent is filled with lethal lone hunters. But this animal is one of the most deadly. The puff adder. What makes this snake the most dangerous in Africa? Responsible for thousands of human deaths a year? The art of surprise. This solitary hunter is pretty good at hiding. Cryptic colors and chevron patterns perfectly camouflage the snake's 3-foot-long body. So prey has no idea they're being hunted. But that's only the puff adder's first surprise. With a target in sight, it's time to strike. With a split-second flick of its head, the snake bites. 350 milligrams of venom flows into the rat. The adder hangs back. For a moment, it seems the rat may survive. But soon the venom takes hold, breaking down the rat's muscles and tissues until it dies. Then the puff adder gets to work and swallows his meal whole, leaving no evidence behind. The puff adder isn't the only deadly serpent in Africa. This one holds the title for the fastest land snake in the world, the black mamba, named for the ink-black color of its coffin-shaped maw. At up to 18 feet per second, the black mamba can move faster than most people can run. And you'd better run, because the black mamba also has one of the fastest acting venoms in the snake world. This mouse tries to escape into its burrow. But the black mamba is perfectly capable of hunting in tight spaces. It makes killing all the faster. Think you can hide in the trees? You may need a plan B. The black mamba is not only an adept climber. Its Latin name, Dendroaspis, actually means tree asp. This chameleon doesn't have anything to worry about today. But these little fledglings never see it coming. Still, a black mamba is deadliest when cornered on land. This one senses something right outside its lair. Turns out, it's one of the deadliest predators in all the land. A lion. The small snake doesn't seem to stand a chance against the king of the jungle. But in this case, the mamba strikes first and fastest. Within a half hour, the killer cat succumbs to the black mamba's deadly venom. Too bad it's too big to eat. Just 10 to 15 milligrams of mamba venom can kill a full-grown man in a half an hour, and one bite can contain 10 times that amount. That's called overkill. Before an anti-venom was developed, the mortality rate from a black mamba bite was a staggering 100%. These days, just hope there's a dose of anti-venom within minutes of you. Because if not, this may be the last smile you ever see. Chilling speed, split-second strikes, fast-acting venom. In the world of venomous killers, the African black mamba is a terrifying triple threat. And it's not just snakes that have ice in their veins when it comes to killing. Scorpions are built for battle. They have their own body armor, an exoskeleton that glows in the dark, strong pincers coated with fine hairs sense prey and crush enemies. They can survive in harsh conditions and go as long as 6 months between meals. And then there's that venomous sting. They use it to immobilize their prey, and sometimes that prey is each other. When one scorpion trespasses on another's turf, it's time to lock and load. They use their tails as swords, each trying to breach the other's defenses. If a sting penetrates the armor, it's certain death and digestion. Scorpions can't eat solid food. They have to use enzymes to break it down externally. The victor cannibalizes its brother into a scorpion soup. Scorpions aren't the only 8-legged predator with a frosty relationship with their prey. Many spiders are notorious for their killer appetites. But there's one 8-legged eater whose hunger is colossal. The Goliath bird-eater spider, up to an astonishing 12 inches across. This tarantula from South America shows that big spider equals big food. Like snakes, bats, rats, insects, and mice. The Goliath has weak eyesight, but it can sense vibrations in the air and through the ground with highly sensitive hairs. And right now, it feels dinner. Massive 1-inch fangs inject the mouse with paralyzing venom. Then, the spider regurgitates digestive juices that break down the rodent into a liquid meal. Mouse stew, anyone? And just in case you thought the name bird eater was false advertising, it's not. The Goliath earned its name by catching and consuming food as big as young birds. The Goliath bird eater is an impressive predator, and it takes a massive appetite to be the biggest and baddest spider in the world. These killers don't just use venom to conquer their prey. Some use it to deter other cold-blooded killers. Looks can be deceiving. This slow and squishy rough-skinned newt is actually one of the most toxic animals on Earth. It's covered in a muscle-paralyzing poison called TTX, which is 10,000 times more deadly than cyanide. If a predator eats him, it's usually their last meal. A hungry garter snake is sizing it up. The snakes have evolved partial immunity to TTX, but some newts are more poisonous than others. It's an evolutionary arms race between predator and prey. The newt sends a warning signal. And the snake decides it's not worth the risk. Another predator is less cautious. This voracious bullfrog decides to go for it, swallowing the newt whole. Now, it's a race between the frog's stomach acid and the newt's poison. The deadly TTX does its work. And the newt crawls from the belly of the beast, none the worse for wear. It's a comeback worthy of Rocky Balboa himself. Twitching antenna, bulbous eyes, deadly claws. They kill with unearthly speed. They stalk prey in slow motion, edging ever closer. And once in range, they deliver death in a flash. In 1/20th of a second, a mantis's spiked forelegs dart out and snatch its quarry. Before the target can process what's happening, its brain is being eaten. Mantises also aren't above taking a bite out of each other's head. And that's just the appetizer, because the praying mantis can eat every part of its kill, from head to foot to wing. Ambushing butterflies is one thing, but that super speed really comes in handy when attacking far deadlier insects. But it's not just bugs on the menu. This young mantis is about to be lunch for a much larger frog. So it's nice to have a mom who's bigger and faster than your foe. Frog legs, anyone? Beware. Once the lightning-fast praying mantis gets you in its clutches, you haven't got a prayer. There's one creature on land that truly deserves the nickname Jaws. The chompers of the rock python seem small, but their power speaks volumes. Growing more than 20 feet long, it's one of the largest snakes in the world. Watch where you step, because the rock python will bite if bothered. It eats almost anything it can swallow, and it can swallow almost anything. Like many predators, it hunts while hiding, preparing for an ambush. Sensors on its snout can detect whether prey is nearby. Springbok. In a two-pronged attack, the python grips the prey in its teeth. Then it deploys another weapon: bondage. Each time the springbok exhales, the python squeezes tighter. Every breath becomes shallower as the python tightens its grip, until death by strangulation. Now, the jaws really perform. Pythons don't chew prey. They don't even dismember it. They swallow it whole, starting from the head. Jaw power makes it possible. Both jaws are divided in two, a total of 4 moving parts, all of them flexibly attached to the skull by tendons and ligaments. Each moves separately from each other, allowing the python to inhale prey 3 times wider than its mouth. Its teeth curve inward to keep prey from slipping out. Thanks to such flexible jaws, the python glides over its meal like a sock over a leg. Washboard muscles move prey through the stomach. Its stomach acid is so powerful, it will dissolve bone. The python goes through one of the longest digestions on record. And it may not eat again for a year. Bitter strength isn't just used to catch a meal. In the cold-blooded realm of the reptile world, battles over mating rights can be very heated. When out on the hunt in its tropical domain, the monitor lizard likes to fly solo. His forked tongue helps him sniff out decaying fish, flesh, and females. But when love is in the air, potential suitors come out of the woodwork. And with this quick-tempered lizard, that means instant competition. These scaly battles can last for up to 45 minutes. This isn't a fight to the death, but rather a display of dominance and strength. a heavyweight sumo match with claws, where the loser gets pinned underwater. The triumphant male gets the girl, but he better watch out. Female monitors are just as ready to scrap. They'll fight their mates for food. When it comes to survival among these lizards, there's no such thing as one big happy family. In 1910, a Dutch lieutenant reported sighting large reptilian creatures roaming the mysterious islands of Indonesia. They possess scales tough as chainmail, claws keen as knives, and a never-ending appetite for flesh. Old sea maps used to warn, here there be dragons. They very well may have been talking about Komodo dragons. Far from creatures of myth, these very real dragons can grow up to 10 feet in length and weigh over 300 pounds. That much mass requires a lot of fuel. And these lizards are gross consumers. Emphasis on gross. Deer, goats, oxen, bones, hooves, and hides. A ravenous Komodo eats it all, eating up to 80% of its own body weight in one feeding. But that's why they can afford to be patient and cunning hunters. A Komodo targets its prey and delivers one venomous bite. The dragon then tracks the debilitated prey until it succumbs to the poison, which can take days. Some Komodos have to fight for their meal. When this vicious clash of the titans is over, one thing will be certain: the victor will have worked up an even mightier appetite. The next time you visit the islands of Indonesia, you may want to heed the warning on the old sea maps. Because here there be dragons, and here they be hungry. Australia, paradise for unique creatures found nowhere else on Earth. The northeast of the country is lush and tropical. But in the vast interior, there is no jungle and almost no water. This is the outback, a savage realm where only the toughest predators can survive, including a speed demon giant lizard, the Perenti. This monster monitor can grow 8 feet long, but it's lean and athletic. Perentis will happily scavenge on a putrid carcass. But easy meals like this rotting kangaroo are rare. Most of the time, the Perenti must hunt down live prey. Luckily, it's built to kill. The Perenti tracks its prey using its long tongue, which picks up chemical signals in the air. They also have excellent eyesight, but its real weapon is speed. Perentis have a turbocharged breathing system which pumps air into their lungs when they need to really move. Reaching speeds of up to 25 miles per hour, the Perenti is faster than most Olympic sprinters. This means they can run down even the fastest prey, like rabbits. This is no lounge lizard. It's the Ferrari of the reptile world. Australia's Perentis aren't even the biggest stone-cold killers on the island continent. People travel to northern Australia to explore its natural beauty. For the residents of the forest, these waterways provide life. But not every visitor to the river gets out alive. These murky waters are home to a true monster, the largest living reptile on Earth, the saltwater crocodile. Up to 23 feet long and weighing over a ton, covered in thick scales and armed with a snout full of wicked teeth. Their bite is the strongest of any living animal on Earth. Anything it can't swallow whole is clamped in these terrifyingly strong jaws. And with powerful shakes of the Salty's head, ripped into pieces. But these massive predators can be surprisingly stealthy and cunning, considering the largest are longer than the average car. The huge beasts are like lethal submarines, nearly invisible in murky water, with eyes above the surface. They mostly feed on small prey, but anything that comes near the water is on this river monster's menu. This goose was snatched off the riverbank before it knew what hit it. The crocodile's teeth are not razor sharp like a shark's. They pierce and grip the goose's body so the powerful jaws can crush it. Crocodiles can't swallow when they're submerged, otherwise their throat and lungs would fill with water. So it stays above the surface and swallows the 10-pound goose whole. But it's not just careless animals coming down to the river's edge that risk becoming lunch for a hungry Salty. You wouldn't think this fruit bat is in any danger resting high in a tree, but underestimate Salties at your peril. They're not just lumbering brutes. All that power makes them surprisingly athletic. Using their massive tails to generate speed, Salties can lift their bodies out of the water and snatch animals from the trees. A fully grown saltwater crocodile is the undisputed king of this piece of paradise. Prey of the world. Take note of these ruthless killers. When you venture out into the wilds of the world, whether it be the ocean, the forest, or just the tree next door, beware. You never know which one of these predators may be lurking to take a bite in cold blood.